about communism, all the damage it's done to the Cuban people, how many of you Cubans who fled had to redo your lives in the United States and many other places in the world. So we give it over to you, Iskra, and we'll be back with Q&As at the end of Chris's conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you to Lázaro for having me here today. I'm going to sit down because I can't be standing the whole time. As Mark mentioned, I left Cuba when I was 9 years old. My father was a political prisoner in Cuba, so when the Mariel boat lift was established, my father was able to bring his whole family to the United States because of his political activism. I was only 9 years old, and my family went through a series of repudiation meetings in school and at home. Buses would come full of people telling us that we were the bad people, that they didn't want us in our country. They would throw eggs at us, rotten eggs, foods, vegetables, all kinds of things. Due to these traumatic experiences, I also was in the Mosquito. It was a concentration camp where all of the immigrants that wanted to flee the country at the moment had to stay there until we would get on the boats. The concentration camp, we were over 100,000 people, 100,000 Cubans that wanted to flee the country. It was an inhumane way of keeping us there. We had to eat rotten food for 3 straight days. There was dogs that were left to chew on us if we didn't do what the police wanted us to do. And they had us with regular prisoners in the same camp, and also people from the crazy establishment. After getting to the U.S., and due to the dramatic experiences that I went through, I didn't speak for 2 entire years. I lost my speech. It wasn't until I had a lot of psychological and speech therapy that I was able to get my speech back. Due to this, ever since I had reason of mind, I haven't been able to stop speaking about the danger of communism and what it has done to my people, not just to me, but to thousands and thousands and millions of people across the globe that have had to leave their country because we are against the current regime in our country. In addition to, we also have to explain to the people how the propaganda that Fidel Castro has established throughout the world is unprecedented and is a complete lie. That is the propaganda that the left has done around the world is just a complete lie. And we need to tell them the truth. We need to tell our stories so that people understand what communism really does to my people, just like it has done to my own family. There are over 125 embassies around the world for Cuba. Cuba has 125 embassies around the world. And these embassies are not used for more than terrorism and propaganda. This is what the Fidel Castro's embassies does around the world. They use these embassies as propaganda to continue spreading communism throughout the world. In Europe alone, there are 34 embassies and missions. These embassies are being used again as propaganda and terrorism to continue spreading communism. So we must fight back. We must fight back against everything they stand for. Because currently, we have over 1,200 political prisoners in Cuba. Nobody speaks about this. We have, again, let me tell you the number again. We have over 1,200 political prisoners in my country. right now. And the only thing they did was go out into the streets to ask for libertad, freedom. What my country is looking for is freedom. What the people in my country want is freedom. They are unable to fight back because they have no weapons. And nobody is paying attention to them. So us, the Cubans that are outside, we are their voices. And this is why it is so important for me to speak about what they're going through. In the month of August alone, we had the largest amounts of protests and marches in our country. I am sure that none of you have seen these protests because the national networks are not visualizing it. But there are Cubans out on the streets almost every day asking for freedom. We must be their voices. We must continue to fight for them and for a free Cuba. Mark, did you have any other questions?
Iskra, thank you so much for your explanation. That was really fantastic. I would like to reflect with you a bit on what life is like in Cuba. So, could you just explain for us a little bit what memories you have of how life develops or underdevelops actually in a communist country? In a communist country where everything has been stripped from the people, everything has been taken away, not just because of the sake of it, but also under the promise that, oh, it doesn't matter, you don't need to own anything because the state will provide for everything that you need. And what actually happens is that the biggest lie is that the state actually provides for nothing, because the state is in the hands of dictators whose only goal is to live themselves like kings with all the wealth that's left after everything they have taken away from the people. So what are your memories of what your life was like up to the age of 9 before you and your family had to flee Cuba?
Well, my memories are very limited, obviously, because I was very young. However, I do remember my mother having to do lines of almost 3 days during Christmas time to get us a very small, something to play with. I remember my mother saying, well, you can't have that because we can't afford it. I remember us being at a table and asking my father, what are we eating today? He said, well, you don't need to know, you just eat. Because whatever was put on the table, that's what we had. There was nothing else. There were no other options. Now, in today's Cuba, it's even worse than when I was there in the 80s. I am in contact with opposition groups every day, and people inside Cuba, and they tell me the scars are horrendous. There is nothing in the stores, and they tell you that they ration the food to give to people, but they don't tell you that the people still have to pay for those foods. They still have to pay for it, and there isn't anything there to pay for. If you want to get anything extra, you have to go to the MLC markets and pay in U.S. dollars. But my people don't make U.S. dollars. They don't get paid in U.S. dollars, but they have to pay for everything in U.S. dollars. How is this possible? How is it possible, Mark, that Cuba is currently asking to the United States to help them because of the hurricane damages, but yet when us, the families of those people, want to go in and help, they don't let us in? Well, how is this possible, which is what was happening to Ariel Luis Urquiola and Omara? Explain to me how they're asking for help, but they don't let us help. The reason why they don't do it is because they want the governments to give their government money so they can use it against my people, not for my people. And that's the big plot, Mark. The big plot is for people to talk about ending the embargo. And all of that is going to do is give them more money for them to militarize and use that military against the people. So I am completely against ending the embargo. Ending the embargo is not going to help the people of Cuba. Ending the embargo is only going to put money in the Cuban government's pockets. They have millions and millions of dollars, and all they have done is use it against the people by buying military forces. I mean, you've seen these military trucks, that brand new trucks, and we have no ambulances to take people to the hospitals. People are dying because we have no ambulance, but yet we spend millions and millions of dollars in militarizing, the government. So I am completely against, and